Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Tuesday, May 11th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Minnesota game is in 114 days. The game against Michigan in exactly 200 days. We are now a little more than 3 weeks out from the end of Ohio State spring practice. There are still 11 weeks until Big Ten Media Days, probably 12 weeks or so until the start of fall camp for the Buckeyes. This is a time of year that matters a lot for college football programs, but it's also a time when the coaching staffs can't be around much. So what is really happening around the Ohio State program right now, and why does this actually matter? My guest today is former Ohio State captain and All-American Kirk Barton. Kirk, the last time we talked about the spring game, you mentioned that as soon as spring ball is over, guys would maybe head out, hit the nightlife for a little bit to blow off some steam. How long does that more relaxed time after spring ball last? Is that weeks? Is that a month? Or is that enjoy this 48 hours?
I think it depends on the kid and it depends on how dedicated they are. I think a lot of kids want to go out for a little bit when there's a little period with finals where there aren't mandatory workouts. So they're not going to break you off in the workout. Like gym's open, but you don't have to go run stadium stairs, because some of these guys, they're not going to be drinking their vodka sodas and then have to run stadium stairs the next morning and be throwing up all over themselves. But I think it depends on the kid, how focused they are. The weather's getting nicer, which, leads to more guys going out, more activities, but it's, this is a really weird, different year because of the one-time transfer rule and if they're going to do the name, image, and likeness thing by July 1st, this is going to be a wild year because these kids, they've got a plan for that stuff too. If they say, oh, there might be this kid coming and taking my spot, or what do I have to do to get paid by this car dealership or whatever. This is a whole different, two things that have never happened in the history of college football, and they're both happening at the exact same time. It's you gotta study the tests a little bit because this is gonna be a wild summer.
Yeah, you get those two things plus the 13, 14 months of buildup of not being able to have visits. This is going to be for recruits and current players a crazy summer. Yep. So once guys are back into prepping for the season, whenever that happens, whether that was a weekend off or 3 weeks off or the party is still going a little bit, what kinds of things can and can't they do this time of year? Because I know the NCAA has restrictions on when coaches can be around and when they can't and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they actually give the coaches some time now in the summer to be with the kids and to do some meetings and stuff. Before that, in the summer, there was none of that was allowed. But now there's a day a week or 2 days a week where the coach can get with the players and go through some film and go through some drills, and that's I think huge for skill development. But one thing that Urban Meyer really brought to the program was skill development on your own, so to speak. They set up all these stations around the indoor facility where there's sleds for linemen and there's jugs machines and the kids have gotten really good at just working out on their own at the Woody. So I think before, but also in addition to the formal workouts that Mickey Marotti does, the skill development stuff in the summer is a huge thing that these guys focus on. And it's smart because, if you're a receiver, you can't catch enough jugs balls, man. That thing is, Mike Thomas dominated on the thing. His hands are like a 99 on Madden because he was on that thing all the time. You just get used to catching the ball. So I think this is going to be a real interesting summer to see who steps up and takes advantage of this time.
I remember talking to Paris Campbell and Terry McLaurin and Johnny Dixon and KJ Hill. Those guys, when they were at school, they had a competition to see if they could catch 10,000 balls off that jugs machine during the off season between the start of the previous season and the end of the previous season and the start of the next one. I don't know if they got there, but they said they got pretty close, I think. So 10,000 is a lot of passes to catch.
Yes.
Yeah, we have talked about in the past about the importance of Mickey Marotti. You mentioned him earlier, Mickey and his staff, and how for a big chunk of the year, it is really functionally almost his program more than, as much or more than it is Ryan Day's. So what is Mickey in charge of right now? And why does he matter so much to the program on the whole?
Just the summer conditioning, the making sure the team is fit and in shape in terms of their cardio, muscular development. And he's excellent at it, but anybody can lift weights or do curls or bench press, but it's building the toughness because these workouts are miserably hard, but it's also a way to condition your body to get ready for the grind of training camp and the grind of the season. And, tough teams are made in the weight room, period. Because Mickey doesn't have nearly as much away time from the team as the coaches do. Mickey can see these guys every day. So he, his toughness is something that really isn't talked about enough, and how he builds our team to be tough so they compete late in the season.
We've talked a lot about in the past about quarterbacks and receivers, like calling each other up and having a group text to just go out and throw together. Just, Dwayne Haskins would send out a group text like, hey, who wants to go throw? Or Justin Fields, and guys would just meet them at the facility and they just go throw together. So that's like the quarterbacks and the wide receivers. As a lineman, like, what's the equivalent of that? Are you just running drills together? I mean, you mentioned sleds being at the facility. You're just hitting sleds. Are you videotaping your technique and sending it to the coaches to get feedback? Like, how do you get better as a lineman this time of year?
I mean, honestly, the one thing you can work on a lot is just your pass sets, just working on your vertical sets, your angle sets, just making sure that you've got the muscle memory down. Run blocking, it's harder to get any type of, I mean, you could push sleds and do that kind of thing, but you just got to continuously take the footwork steps. You got to do that. Urban would always say, he's got to take that same step 10,000 times before it's conditioned into his muscle memory. And like on vertical sets, you can't take enough vertical sets just to make sure that it's smooth. And, when you're coming out of your stance, it's one of those things that is second nature. It's like when you like brush your teeth, like you don't have to think about how to brush your teeth because you've done it so many times, but that's how your vertical set needs to be, when you're playing tackle. So it's something where, a lot of that time it's just on air. It's just you, and you can tape it. Sometimes taping it is good, so you can actually correct it. You can say, hey, I didn't even realize I was doing this, but and then it's also good for the older guys to get with the younger guys and help them. Say, hey, what are you thinking about your stance? Okay, maybe think about pushing off your like left big toe if you're playing right tackle in vertical setting. Like that was something I got from Harry Easton when I played for the Bears, just to help propel you back and make it smooth. Because some guys, they've never had a vertical set before, or they haven't had to really pass block against fast defensive linemen before. So it's something they got to get used to, and you got to get used to it fast. Because I mean, when practice starts, no one's waiting for you to figure out how to do your vertical set.
Can you explain to people who don't know what a vertical set is and why it's important?
So, yeah, a vertical set is if you just watch like a left tackle in the NFL, the guys that get paid a lot of money, like Tyron Smith, who it was funny, I actually met him this weekend when I was on vacation. He has the best vertical set. It's the smoothest vertical set. He plays for the Cowboys. And, he's done that same rep a million times. So it's like, when there's a drop back pass and, you got the defensive end lined up on the outside shoulder of the tackle kicks back. That's what we call a vertical set to deflect the defensive end and block the defensive end and keep him off of Dak Prescott or whoever the quarterback is. So that's a motion that, you just have to practice it. I mean, the guys that like Tyron Smith he's $100 million tackle, and it's just his set is so smooth. And I told him, I was like, dude, like I love watching your vertical set. It's like unbelievable. It's like watching Steph Curry shoot a 3-pointer. Like you're just like, it's just like effortless, and it's not because now his dad was Del Curry, but it's not because he just genetically did it. It's because he's taken that shot 100 million times in his life. He's been in the gym. That's how these guys get to be good at stuff. It's repetitions and corrections, and then you get to be really proficient at something.
I'm sure the coaches have a pretty decent sense of what's happening this time of year, but how much can they tell, like, who's really been putting in the work and who hasn't when the team actually gets all back together for the start of fall camp? Like, what does that look like when a guy hasn't been doing the work? Like, how far behind are they at the start of camp if they haven't been putting in as much work as other guys during this point of the year?
Well, it's just a situation where if you're not in shape when camp starts, it's going to be a bad deal. Now, some guys, if they have an injury, if they have a foot injury, leg injury, they get injured during training, that's different. But if you're a guy that's not putting in the work, man, it's you don't want to show up for the test without having studied at all. I mean, and it's an open book test. I mean, to work out hard, take care of your body, just get ready for the grind, because the grind is here. Like, these guys are going to blink and it's going to be August 5th and camp starting. That's how I used to look at it. And, the fun of the whole thing is just in the toil of the summer when it's hot out, when it's noon and you're running on AstroTurf and it's 20 half gassers and it's, miserable. And, but you're the one, if you don't put that work in, then, it's going to show up when you're going against a guy who has put that work in, so you got to make sure that you're, and I always say, these guys, there ain't no law that says you can't do more. There's no law that says you can't be the best. There's no law that says, that's the great thing about the Woody Hayes is they have every machine known to man to make you strong, fast, whatever. You just got to use them, and it's not rocket science. And I tell these kids, I'm like, man, there's always someone out there putting in more work than you. and a lot of these guys that, that Bama took it to us. I mean, that should be in the front of their minds. Like, we got to do everything we can for that to not happen to us again, So if you ever lack of motivation, just think about the scoreboard at the end of that game.
Yeah, last year, for sure, they used that end of that Clemson game as motivation. We heard about that a lot throughout the year, and I think you probably saw the results on the field in New Orleans of exactly how motivated and focused they had been. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they can kind of do the same thing with Alabama this year. There is that old saying that you can't win the national championship this time of year, but you can lose it. So can you explain what that means and whether you buy into that as a philosophy?
Yeah, I absolutely believe you can lose it right now. I mean, you have to hit the ground running as best you can in the season, because these games are so important now. And I mean, week 2, you got Oregon coming, and they'll be as good as anybody. I mean, their defensive lineman is projected to go number 1 in the NFL draft. So if you're an offensive lineman and you can't go to the gym for an extra rep, and you got that guy coming for you, then I don't know what you're really doing. But I believe in summer conditioning. I believe in it being really hard. I believe in it, the teams that work the hardest usually are the best. And it's, Bama. I mean, we're going to see them no matter what. They're just like a final boss on a video game. They're always going to be there. We've got to be there. I'm sure Clemson's putting in work, but you gotta put in the work. We also can't get too distracted by all this periphery stuff, with the transfer portal, with name, image, and likeness. Like, guys can't be focused on getting a car dealership deal and then skip a workout, or, not focus on their film, or not work their technique, because if you're good at all that stuff, all the other periphery stuff will take care of itself. But it's going to be interesting to see how we manage this stuff, because, for the NCAA to say that they want it to happen by July 1st, and everybody I've talked to at Ohio State seemingly has no clue about NIL, it's kind of interesting. It's like, we might as well say, hey, well, we want to cure cancer by July 1st. Like, great. So do we, but good luck. I mean, it's going to be a very interesting summer. I'm actually really excited for it, because I think it's going to be nuts.
I do like the idea of Nick Saban as the final boss of college football, like getting all the way to the end of the game and be like,
yeah,
I thought he'd be bigger.
He's like Shang Tsung. I know he's like Shang Tsung, but he can shape shift or something, man. I mean, he's a different beast.
So, all right, you've mentioned the transfer portal a couple times. Let's talk for a minute about the transfer portal before I let you go.
Oh, yeah.
Ohio State was in on Henry To'oTo'o, the linebacker, and the talk was, if he came in, he would potentially be taking one of those starting jobs away from one of the guys who had been on campus for, this is their 4th year. Now he's going to Alabama. There's been talk, hey, they're looking at, can they bring in another cornerback, for example, to fill in, to fill one of those corner roles if there's a guy available in the portal. Right now, it doesn't sound like there is, but if you bring someone in and they take a starting job away from someone who's been there for 3 years, 4 years, something like that, what is that like in a locker room? How do you balance that? How do you kind of not have that really completely blow up your team chemistry?
For me, it's, everybody has to compete for their job every day, which sounds like a cliche, but if some kid walks in and takes, a multi-year starter's job, that guy's going to be really good, and so then your number 1 corner goes to your number 2 corner, and then this new guy's the number 1 corner. But I just, for the life of me, I just wouldn't let it happen. I mean, you have to be competitive in those situations. And now it's, it's like free agencies here in college football. There could be a kid showing up from, a smaller SEC school, or some kid who's a really good MAC player shows up. And, the one thing about these coaches is they like their jobs. And the best way for them to keep their jobs is to win. And the best way to win is to have the best players. So, if they brought in Orlando Pace, he might be way better than I am, but I'm still going to scratch and claw and find a spot to either start or, have a role playing guard or the other tackle or whatever. But that's just going to be the mentality you have. I mean, it's, with the Henry To'oTo'o thing, I mean, the dad said the good shot is going to come, like he was going to fly into Knoxville and drive to Columbus and look for a place for Henry and all this. And so, a lot of us thought he was going to be a Buckeye. But here's the flip is, when everyone's calling this guy to Ohio State and then all of a sudden he doesn't come. But, when you're those linebackers in that room and that they were trying to replace you essentially, like, that's something that should motivate these guys, because they're like, this kid can play for us. This kid can help us. And I mean, he's a preseason All-American type linebacker. And I'm sure he'll have a great year at Alabama. I'm sure he'll be an NFL draft pick, and away we go. But yeah, that's never going to stop. Like that's the thing about college football is they're always trying to replace you, and that's not me being paranoid. It's just I've sat in the staff room. It's like I don't care if we have the best left tackle in the world. Like we're going to go try and get another 5-star left tackle. Period. It's not like we're going to take a year off because we got this kid, so we don't need another one. We want all of them. Because you don't know if a kid's going to tear his ACL. You don't know if a kid's all of a sudden just going to not like football anymore and quit, or get a bad concussion and have to medically retire. Like I've seen, like Kyle Dodson was a 4-star tackle from Cleveland. We beat Auburn and Wisconsin on him, and he had a neck and got medically DQ'd. Never played a single snap at Ohio State, a meaningful snap. So but you just got to keep bringing these kids in, man, because a lot of them don't make it. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the portal shakes out for Ohio State, if we get anybody, if we lose anyone else, because it's just, we got a lot of talented kids that aren't going to be playing a lot of minutes. And that's a recipe for something that could be very, very interesting the rest of the summer, especially with the one-time transfer.
Yeah, the transfer portal, definitely one thing that we're going to have plenty to talk about over the course of the summer and the lead up to the season. The return of visits, as we talked about. There's just the NIL thing. I mean, that is just going to be absolute chaos. And I think people don't really appreciate exactly how big it is and exactly how quickly it's coming, and how completely unprepared I think a good chunk of the sport is. That is going to be absolutely fascinating to watch. We had all the will they or won't they play drama last summer. It's going to be a whole different ball of wax this year, as we it is not going to be a slow off season. It wasn't a real slow off season last year, and it's not going to be a real slow off season this year. So as someone who hosts a daily podcast, great. I'm all for it. So, and one of the best places to follow all of that exciting news as it breaks throughout the summer is at BuckeyeScoop.com. We'll have our team of insiders covering all of it, from the transfer portal to the NIL stuff to the different positional battles that are shaking out. All of it at BuckeyeScoop.com. Our Ask the Insiders board, of course, a fantastic place to get all your questions answered by our team of experts, insiders, former All-Americans, and recruiting analysts, and more. That's all at BuckeyeScoop.com. Also, make sure to check out all of our great podcasts. Bill and Mark just are wrapping up their Scoop 100 series on the top 100 players in the nation. They're working their way towards number one. I don't know who it is yet. I have a feeling number one might be a name that Ohio State fans are interested in, but we haven't gotten there yet, so I'm not sure yet. But that'll be, you can find the Gives in the Bank podcast and all of our great podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, you name it. We're there. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find all of those. You can also find them on YouTube at youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. You can subscribe right there, and then you get notified every time we post a new video, whether it's a podcast or a camp video. Mark is doing his Southern Swing trip right now. He'll be on a little later on this week to talk about that. But he will be churning out some great videos from a lot of players, names you would want to know down in the southern part of America. Guys who are interested in Ohio State, guys who are committed to Ohio State, and much more. So that's all at youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. That'll do it all for today. Thank you guys for joining us. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.